It is very quick.
Yep. You ready, Mark?
I am.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'll go ahead and call the German Township Board of Trustees meeting to order. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Heaston, would you please take the roll call?
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Stubbs?
Here.
Dr. Cross? Here. Mr. Potter? Here. All are present.
All right, to start off the meeting tonight, we have a zoning presentation. Is it McBride and Dale?
McBride Dale Clarion.
Okay.
Could you state your name and address before you get started?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Jonathan Woker. I'm a planner with McBride Dale Clarion. I was contacted by Mr. Scholler in your zoning commission. And we've talked before about coming out to talk to you about updating your zoning resolution and the process that would be involved. Initially, Mr. Scholler contacted us in April about potential assistance with some funding opportunities that the state had announced, and that House Bill 315, you might be aware of that, had a bucket of money that was available for communities to petition the state and say, we'd like to use that funding for zoning updates or other plan updates. That process went very fast. They opened the process and it was closed within 4 days. So there's clearly a high demand for that. Hopefully the state will refund that and do that again next year. But we decided it probably made some sense to still come out and talk to you. If you'll bear with me, I've got about 10 minutes and I'll explain who we are, what McBride Dale Clarion is about. And then that's the first page of the handout I gave you. And then the second page is kind of an outline of how you typically would update a zoning resolution. I do have Andy Yingling here with me. He's a senior planner with our office, and I'll just go ahead and explain that. So McBride Dale Clarion, we're a planning and zoning consulting firm. We're located in Cincinnati. What we do is we work with communities on updating plans and codes. We also represent developers and zone change processes and other things, and we do provide staff services. For example, I've been the township planner for Batavia Township in Claremont County for a little more than 20 years. When they get plan developments and other complicated projects, they'll send them to my office and I'll do a staff report, present to the zoning commission, and then present to the board of trustees and work with the applicant to, develop whatever recommendations they want to have. Andy's currently working with multiple townships. We've just updated Westchester Township zoning resolution. We're working on Tate Township and Franklin Township. We've done work for Deerfield Township, in a lot of places, as well as a lot of cities. So that's what we do. I've listed on here our public sector planning group. Liz Fields is the director of that. Andy's a senior planner there. We also have two other planners. Several of the people of our staff have actually worked for townships. So we've got a good background on how townships work and what makes you run and how to do that. And then kind of at the bottom, we've highlighted some of the key elements of what we think are important. We try and craft our work to be specific for your community. We don't provide cookie cutter analysis. We work with what is the direct demands for you and the character and values that you have. We try and have practical solutions. We're not trying to come up with pie in the sky elements. We want to have something that's going to meet what you need and be practical. And we base that on sound information and also try and be forward thinking. A lot of what we do is trying to position our clients to be prepared for the future, right? So we're a planning firm and we like to do that. We don't predict the future. We just have been trained in best practices and try and put you in positions to manage growth and your development accordingly. That's kind of a little bit of a sales pitch about what McBride Dale Clarion does. We're a relatively small firm. We've got 11 planners on staff. And again, we do this every day. So on the back page of that handout, I've outlined basic approach for a zoning resolution update. I have looked at your code generally, I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but I've looked at your code and talked with Mr. Scholler and understand that, there's some potential opportunities to update your zoning resolution. And I just want to talk about what that process would be. And then from there, I can field some questions. We usually take one of two approaches. One would be a targeted amendments, so basically a strategic approach to what your code needs based on how it's currently set up versus a full rewrite, starting from scratch and starting over. We think, when you're looking at a targeted approach, we usually look at modernizing the standards. So making sure that the regulations in your zoning resolution are up to date and are best practices. We look at targeted amendments, perhaps you need updates on solar regulations or on plan unit developments or whatever commercial standards. For example, I noticed you don't have a lot of landscaping or lighting regulations in your code. A lot of communities have adopted those kinds of things. And also bringing your code up to the current standards, right? So I mentioned House Bill 315. There were some amendments or some legislation that changed the way that townships can issue fines and enforcements and penalties. It's not a significant amendment, but it's something you definitely want to make sure you're up to date so that gives you the teeth moving forward, that your county prosecutor can do that. It basically says you can issue civil fines, which is a better way to do the fining than currently. They also recently changed procedures for public notice. So I'm not sure if you knew that, but you now have the ability, if you want to, instead of just placing advertisements in the newspaper, you're able to do that on a website or on social media. And so there are some guidelines about that. So that's just a couple of examples of modernization. And then we would look at format improvements. A lot of what makes a zoning code usable is being able to sit with somebody and both agree to what it says. The more that you have to rely on interpretation, the more people feel like it's a good old boy network and he's getting an interpretation that I'm not getting. And the cleaner you can make some of these interpretations, the easier it is for everybody, for the decision makers, for your recommending body, for your zoning staff, as well as the public. So the more clear it can be, the better. And we found that by using tables and graphics and formatting with headers, things that aren't real sexy, but that really can improve your code, you can improve the understanding of your zoning resolution. So those are things we would typically implement. So in kind of in the middle of the page, the thought I have and what I would recommend that the township consider, kind of looking at doing this in stages. One of the things we look at is doing an initial diagnostic of your code. And that's something where you can take an assessment from the professionals to look at your code, and we can look at best practices and other things that we're familiar with, but also get some feedback from your staff, from your commission, the stakeholder interviews, and find out what's working, what's not working. And from there, we can do a diagnosis and say, here's a starting point, and here's what we think is a framework for revisions. And then that becomes the basis for the next stage, which would be a full proposal and an understanding of the next timelines. So how much updates do we need? Is this more of a 6-month process or more of a 12-month process? And a lot of that's based on what direction we get from the township leaders. So those first two, the initiation, that would be us looking at your records. What kind of variances have you been issuing? If you're always issuing a variance for the size of a shed, maybe your regulation just isn't right. Maybe we just need to change that, right? Or, so we get some information there, talking with your stakeholders. We do that diagnosis. And then items 3 and 4 would actually be the code drafting. We typically do that in what we call modules. So we break it into digestible chunks because we recognize that at the end of the day, especially at a township level, we're dealing with citizens who don't have hours and hours to read volumes of zoning code. So we try and break the code into 3, 4, 5 different modules, and we deal with process, and then we might deal with standards, and then we might deal with appeals and so on. And so we kind of break it into digestible chunks That way, as you move through it on a monthly basis, it's digestible, and then we can pull that code together at the end. So that's kind of an overview. And then I guess the last part we shouldn't pass on that would be the adoption. So as a township, you're pretty much controlled by ORC about how that adoption process works. So there's not a whole lot of room for interpretation there, but there are some technical elements to doing that. And you want to have, the professionals there to answer questions from your public on that. So then the last thing at the bottom is public engagement. That can be crafted to what your community wants and what your expectations are. We've listed what we typically include, which would be stakeholder meetings. Those are typically either interviews or small groups to get some feedback. Let them talk to us about what's happening with the zoning. An advisory committee, that can be a citizens group. It could be the zoning commission, kind of depends on their workload and how you want to manage that. And then some public information sessions, that would be a public meeting where we would present generally in modules, again, like here's standards, here's different things, and emphasize what's changing. And then the public hearing, which is the formal process. So that's people are sworn in, you're taking testimony, and that's that way. Then on the right side, last thing I'll talk about here is, the optional engagement. So there's a whole lot of other things that can happen. We can have online surveys, or you can have web-based information, forums, and so on. And so those are things, depending on what you feel really would drive your community, we can work with you on that. And, there's some costs assigned with some of that too. So I know I ran through that pretty quickly. I want to be respectful of your time. But, the process is generally do an assessment. Let's define where we're going to go, and that becomes the path for that. And we usually use that diagnosis throughout. It's an outline that says, okay, what are we going to work on next, and why did we make that change? So usually at the end, we're referring to the diagnosis, say, we changed this because that was identified as a problem. We modernized this because that's what we found. And so that's what we can do. And we've got experience working with communities on your timeline and your schedule and your budget to see what you wanted to do. I think I'll stop there, see if you have questions. I know you have zoning commission members here. I'm willing to, whatever format, I can field questions or, whatever.
Do you typically work with, because I know you mentioned some townships that are much, much larger than we are. So, and our size, is this something you guys have worked with in the past, or?
We do. I'm working with Franklin Township, which is the township that surrounds Felicity in Claremont County. I think their population is less than 5,000.
Okay.
Pretty big. It's along the river. So kind of think New Richmond area, and then going up the hill. Tate Township.
So 9,000.
9,000. So, and pretty big sizes. So, and we've done a lot of different sizes.
Okay.
So we do not have a comprehensive land use plan. Would that be included, or something you'd want to see?
So that would be a different study. In a perfect world, the way we're taught in planning school is you do a plan and you get the community together and you say, this is where we want to grow and this is what we want to do and achieve. And the leaders, the township trustees, adopt that. And then step 2 is now we craft our zoning to reflect that plan. In reality, your zoning map is probably pretty close to the plan right now. So that's a long way of answering. You don't necessarily have to have a plan to update your zoning resolution. If you were really saying we need to take this township in a different direction, we're seeing huge growth patterns, and there's a battery factory down the street and we're going to be overrun, then you probably need to do a plan. If the issue is more, we've got some issues with enforcement, we've got some areas we know, then I think you can do a targeted code update without missing a beat. I mean, I believe in plans, but I think that can slow you down if you needed that.
So do you deal at all with enforcement as far as how to do it?
No, we would make sure that your regulations are sound. We do act as staff planners for a number of communities, so we have experience on that. we don't go out and issue violations or, do site inspections. But, we can make sure that your codes are, modern and up to date. And then I think that helps with the next part, which is enforcement.
Oh, if to overhaul and to get us where we probably need to head in the future here, what kind of a cost are we looking at?
Yeah. So without doing the diagnostic part of it, I'd be guessing.
Okay.
I would say, again, I have looked at your zoning code, you're about 197 pages. So, you've got the sections you need. You've got Franklin Township I'm updating is 58 pages, right? So they're missing a lot of things. I don't think you're missing a lot of things. We would give you a proposal to do a diagnostic. That's typically in a $15,000 to $20,000 range. And that typically takes about 3 months.
Okay.
And then from there, we would have an outline and we'd say, this is the feedback we got. And from that point, we can really scope out the next steps.
Okay.
And you can do that all as one chunk. So maybe the next step is modernization and code rewrite. Or maybe say, we're good with our code. We just really need solar regulate, whatever it is, sign updates. And then we can budget for that. Or you can do it in, a module by module. We're actually working with the city of Franklin right now on staff services, and we're doing the updates as we go, right? So they're kind of every few months, they're updating different regulations. They started with, I think, signs, and then they've moved on to landscaping, and now they're looking at some of the process.
Okay.
So I guess that's a long way to say, our recommendation would be you do the diagnosis and then you figure out really what your expectations are.
Okay.
And then we can come up with a scope of work from there. What takes the most time is public engagement, right? So when you start to add layers of public engagement, which is what makes your code good too. I don't want to diminish that.
Yeah.
What makes a good plan and code is people who buy in, which means you've got people who have invested their time. That takes time, and the technology and the people time. So, that's something to consider. Andy, anything you want to add to that?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
Very well covered.
Does any of the zoning members have any questions while you're here today?
Well, what about some of the,
Oh, can you introduce yourself?
yeah, Joe Schaller, 95, 93 Story Road. What about some of the, the regulations that we just don't have right now? For example, I know that there are, potential marijuana related regulations that if we don't have something in by perhaps the end of this month, we might be in kind of a sticky situation moving forward. Like, can we jump in and just kind of take care of some of the things that we're behind on, like right away even before some of the diagnostics potentially, just like we know what they are, jump in, get something on the books, and then, and then move forward with the rest.
Yeah, that could definitely be done. I mean, obviously, there's a defined ORC timeline for how long it takes to get a text amendment through. But I mean, given us some reasonable times, we could prepare text amendments that can be, processed. And you can do a moratorium as well. You can put a short-term moratorium on. You need some legal counsel to do that, make sure it's done right. But you can put a little stopgap in place that maybe buys you 90 days, 180 days if you really are concerned. But we could do that. And we can broaden that scope. I mean, marijuana regulations really aren't that complicated because you basically are you're adding where they're permitted and where they're not, right? So, I mean, the text amendments aren't dozens of pages. It's really hitting maybe 6 or 8 sections.
We don't have anything marijuana in our code, but the trustees did pass a resolution to basically make sure that they are not forbid them, I guess would be the best way.
Okay.
It's a permanent moratorium.
Permanent moratorium, yeah, so.
Is that moratorium still in place?
Yeah. We did that before the deadline.
So it's something you probably should be in the code too, but it's probably not as urgent as, yeah.
I mean, to me, there's a couple of policy decisions that need to be made are we going to, you don't have to allow, right? So you don't have to allow recreational or medicinal. If you do, but being silent on that is not a good place to be, right? That's not the strongest position to be in. Kind of like sexual oriented businesses, you need to have regulations so that they can't just say there are none, therefore I can be here. So one would be you decide, are we going to allow them? And then two, where do we allow them? And then from a professional standpoint, we can show you how other communities are regulating them. There's some distance requirements and some other things, signage and parking, but it's not a difficult thing to write and prepare. It's more of the policy decision. Where do we want them and how do we want to control them? But I think within, again, if you were to say, Jonathan, we'd like to engage you to do that, I think, within a couple of weeks, we could have that agreement in place and then, prepare some regulations. Probably 3 to 4 weeks, we could turn something around and then working through the adoption process.
I'd say it probably is not a rush, I guess, since we have the moratorium in place as far as the resolution. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Any other questions from zoning members? All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
We will keep your card and see what we decide to do going forward with our zoning.
That sounds great. And I should say, we're not the only firm in town, right? So, I mean, there's other organizations that do this, and you can issue requests for proposals and you can go through interview processes and all that. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that for the best, but
Of course.
that's the way to go. Okay.
We appreciate you taking your time and coming and making a presentation here tonight.
Thank you. And if you have questions, reach out, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we should have full board members to make a proposal on a new slide for the 2026 season. Just state your name for the record.
My name is Alyssa Eschwell. I am the chair of the pool board for Germantown. This is Will Parsons. He is the Aquatic Center Director. We also have Steve Bader in the audience, who is a member at large. Since we do work together for the pool, we want to give you guys a quick snapshot of, where we're looking at the longevity of the pool in the coming years. One of the big things that we have started to run into is that our current slides have existed about 5 to 10 years longer than what they were expected to ever have lasted. However, our operations manager feels comfortable that we can make do for the next year. However, after the next year, it's going to be a little shaky as far as if they are going to be safe to use. So the pool board has kind of been tasked with looking at some potential options for slides. We've looked at several different companies. We've looked at the company that we currently use, as well as 2 others. In order to replace a slide with exactly what we have now, it would be nearly $96,000.
Put that
I'm so sorry.
so that people online can see this. Is there a way to do that?
However, the committee is trying to be very fiscally responsible because we know there are several big projects coming up, that we know we're going to need to do some concrete work on the deck eventually to ensure the drainage of the pools and that we don't have runoff going back into the pools, as well as consistent issues with the zero entry pool that came from when it was renovated about 10, 15 years ago. So we know we have some fees coming our way with those things. So we are looking for this option here, which is $90,000. It gives us the 2 slides, which we get daily use out of with our current 2 slides, but also gives us operational safety, if you will, that we have a lifeguard that can be positioned between the 2 flumes, as well as they can see the slider, for lack of a better term, before they go down to acknowledge that, hey, the area in front of the pool is clear. So this is actually what the pool board has recommended as far as moving forward. Some of the slides are upwards of $150,000. This was actually on the lower end of things. We were looking between 75 and really 100 to spend, even though many of the slides are 150. So I guess where we're looking, we are able to give about 15,000 from 2 of our funds, the pool fund balance, as well as the capital fund in the next 2 years, the next year, which gives us $30,000 towards the slide. However, as our math can see, right, that still leaves $60,000 unaccounted for. So we're requesting that the levy funds be released to be used for this project, as well as to avoid interest payments so that the pool can maintain its fund balance for other major projects, such as the cement replacement, as well as the zero entry pool issues that we are having as far as the filter system, the drainage, as well as potential leaks that may be coming through there, through the skimmer system and all of that fun things. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about
Lifespan of a slide?
what? Go ahead.
The one that we currently have, we've had it for approximately 2 decades. That is on the long end, but we believe based on kind of the conditions of Southwest Ohio, they're a little bit nicer to the materials of the slide. We're looking at the one we had before, it was bought a couple decades ago now, thereabouts. So I'm assuming I'm not a slide engineer, but with everything improving, I assume that at the very least, we would expect to get the same, if not even more life than that. One thing also that should help us is with both the slides being more of kind of the gradual turn. If you've been to our pool before, one of the slides currently is much more of like a corkscrew pattern. And our operations manager said one thing that he has noticed is when you get larger riders and they go down that one, it causes more force and for like a better chance for the tower to shake. And so with having the more gradual descent for both, he thinks that should help it remain more stable for the life of the slide. So that should be helpful too.
And when we got information from the slide company, they said the median age is about 15 years. So we are sitting about 5 years over that with what we currently have.
Yeah.
And typically it sits around 12 years. So we've really tried to get the lifespan out of that.
And
Yes.
our Jason, who does the manages the operations for the pool, he's comfortable with 1 more year with making some. He's been kind of going through piece by piece, making sure it's seeing if anything needs replaced. We're also implementing some tighter rules going forward as far as how many people can be on like at a time going up, so it's not a free for all. But that being said, after this year, we are not going to be able, regardless of what happens in the next slide that's picked, the one we have now is done after this year. So this is going to be the last year of it.
So what monies are available, Mark, as far as the holdback, the pool?
Right,
What monies are available as far as the holdback for the?
absolutely. You've got enough. Were you asking for 60 or the 90? I didn't quite follow.
We have 30, so the 60, please.
You can get 5 more a year by the city taking away their administrative fees that they add on every single year to you. Yep, that's 5,000 they take every year off your, out of your budget.
Oh, I'm not aware of
That's
any of.
paying for my time when I'm
Oh,
working. at
it's
the
you.
pool.
I was like, okay.
But-
Jason.
But that's question, I mean, there's definitely ways that you can save a little bit of money to throw in there. But, yeah, I don't have a,
The holdback funds are 144. Yeah. And change.
so you're asking for 60?
Correct,
Are
60.
you purchasing it now to lock in this price, I assume is what you're going to do?
That would
That's
be
the
it.
goal.
Because it's,
Install it at the end of this season?
Correct.
we would be, as soon as this season is done, our guys will handle the dismantling of what's currently there. The plan would be if there's things that we can scrap or maybe try to sell as possible. We don't know for sure if there will be. We'll look into it if there is a possibility. And then from there, whatever the slide company, we'll have to kind of see with them with their schedule, if they would prefer to start in the fall or maybe early spring come 2026. But that is correct. We want to lock it in because each year they do, even from last year when we were talking, they have a couple $1,000 increase. And with just the current state of things, I don't know where the materials are coming from. So just to be safe, if we can get locked in sooner before there's another hike would be ideal.
And to try and get on the schedule as soon as
Right,
possible.
correct.
So we're not sitting here, May 12th next year
Yeah.
saying, where's our slide?
Correct.
I guess my biggest concern is as far as, the money for the slide, do you have enough in reserve as far as if you have something that will not allow the pool to open, something structural or?
Sure. And I have those numbers if, so, currently, in our fund balance, we are sitting at, 118,000 roughly. And, assuming if we had, just the 30 down, we, are already going to be able to start turning a profit, again, starting that first year. But we would obviously be able to have as much as possible to be safe with these big projects. The concrete, especially with the cost of what those materials are looking like, we know, I mean, we're looking at the whole area is going to need to be addressed at some point. And so that's where we're trying to be, make sure we have enough back for that.
Yeah, so you're cognizant of that as far as, is the pool profitable? Do you make a profit at the end of the year as far as memberships and?
Currently, we have not the past 2 years due to we had a $60,000 a year loan that we were paying back for the pump house. That finished up this past season. If it were not for that, I believe we would have had a roughly 20,000 or so, I think. Don't quote me on that. I know we would have been in the black though. And so looking at this year, we most likely will be, assuming everything goes as you can't predict the weather and stuff, but we should expect to, turn a profit.
Well,
And then
Myamisburg,
last several years, they've been doing a great job of basically breaking even or going the right way.
Yeah,
And
especially with having that big loan paying back.
Yeah.
On top.
And typically pools do not make money. So like the fact that they're close to breaking even or losing very little
Yeah.
is fantastic. And a lot of the things they've been very cognizant about staffing to ensure that, we're not paying extra in staff, as well as trying to use the pool for some other entities, pool parties. That's a great way to pull revenue. Swim team, they're charging our gators like a fee to use the pool. They buy pool passes. So they're pulling revenue from other areas. So they've been very cognizant about that in order to try and stay as close to that balance as they can.
Myamisburg's not going to open again this
Yep.
year. I understand Franklin is now permanently closed.
Correct.
And I heard over the weekend that Farmersville's not going to open.
Oh, they're not.
So if that is true, we're the only pool in this area.
My guess is if Farmersville's not opening, that's going to pull. So Devin may need to know that if he doesn't
Yeah.
already.
And that's something we're planning ahead for that as well. I've already had some discussions as far as maybe some certain days set aside for residents only, as well as potentially raising prices for non-residents to come as well, just to incentivize those who actually pay into the levy that goes towards this field to be able to utilize it. We didn't want to jump in too quickly just because, I mean, there's a decent chance we see some more. We don't know how many for sure, so we don't want to, preemptively shut some things off there, but it's on our radar and we'll be paying attention to it.
Well, I think you guys sounds like a good stewards of the money that you have. I didn't realize there was so much in that fund. So
I think the last thing we paid for was the liner out of that fund, which is 6 years ago or so, probably.
I don't think I was here then, probably when Mr. Keener was here.
Okay. So yeah, you're going back 6, maybe 8 years at that point.
Yeah.
This is the last money we spent from here. So resolution,
Resolution number 29.
I'll introduce resolution 2025-29, a resolution to spend $60,000 on the slide improvement project at the German Township Pool,
What number did you say?
whatever you told me.
In the money.
60.
60. I thought I heard 50.
No.
Second.
Very good.
Thank you very much,
Any
guys.
discussion of the resolution?
I know we get griped at often for the holdback money, but this is another perfect example of why we do it. And
Yeah.
you guys have an opportunity to have a slide improvement. So.
And it helps when you put some money in yourself.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate it and we know that this will help draw some swimmers and, people who may not necessarily come to Germantown frequently, when you have something that is eye-catching and, fun to play on, they want to come back after that. So we appreciate your time and your
Let's
partnership.
vote on that resolution, so when you leave,
Oh.
you know that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Stubbs.
Yes.
Dr. Cross.
Yes.
Mr. Potter.
Yes.
Now, resolution 2025-29 is approved. Can you send me something, Will, so that I can?
Yeah.
I have something in the files when I write the check.
Yes.
And
I'll
also,
be in contact.
Shauna, could you save that PowerPoint?
He's kind of thing.
I can send it as well.
You just need that one slide.
Can you just email me the PowerPoint? Because I want to pull this one slide off, number 8, I think it is.
Yeah.
Put that in the minutes along with the payment.
Thank you very much for your.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, are there any other visitor comments tonight? All right, we will move on to the fiscal officer's report.
I thought Mr. Bader was going to talk. Okay, let me turn on my camera. All right. Well, good evening again, everyone. Let's start out with the minutes from the April 14th meeting. Any changes, corrections?
I don't have any.
I don't have any, I thought.
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. I've also given you the April financial reports. As always, there is the end of the month fund status report, the year-to-date cash summary by fund through the end of April, the month of April cash summary by fund, the April receipts, and the April payments. And I just have one item that's significant to note. That is receipt number 111-2025. It's for $709,824.10, less collection and other fees of $22,684.28. That came from the Montgomery County Auditor. It is the final settlement on the first half real estate taxes for this year. I've not yet received the state's first half homestead and rollback tax payment. Once that comes in, I will pay the city their share of the road levy tax collections, as well as 90% of all the other joint levies. Any questions on the financials?
No.
Could I then have a motion to approve the financial reports and authorize the payment of the April bills?
I'll make a motion to approve the April financial reports and authorize the payment of April bills warrants 50859 through 50863 and vouchers 276 through 367 for payroll, direct deposit, tax withholding, and other electronic payments.
Second.
I caught him. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Every year at the May meeting, the trustees will pass a resolution declaring May 15th as National Peace Officer Memorial Day. That is Thursday of this week. And then this week is also known as Police Week, which honors and celebrates all officers who put others before themselves. And I've given you a resolution similar to prior years. I suggest you read it prior to adoption.
And the number of that one,
30.
I would like to introduce resolution 2025-30, a resolution to recognize and show appreciation to all present and former German Township police officers and employees for their contributions and dedication to the betterment of the German Township community. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officer Memorial Day, and the week in which it falls is Police Week. And whereas the members of the German Township Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of the unincorporated portions of German Township. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that the members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting them innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. Now therefore, the German Township Board of Trustees, Montgomery County hereby resolves, Section 1, that the German Township Board of Trustees will commemorate the sacrifice of America's peace officers by recognizing May 15th in the German Township, Montgomery County, Ohio, as Peace Officers Memorial Day in accordance with Resolution 96-24, and fly the township flag at half-staff in their honor on that day. Section 2, that the German Township Board of Trustees thank and recognize the hard work and commitment of the employees of the German Township Police Department and their continued effort to serve this community with integrity, dedication, and honor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thanks again, Chief.
That's a good,
It's our
with the
pleasure.
unfortunate situation in Cincinnati this past week, I think it's always important to recognize the sacrifice that our officers make on a daily basis.
Any other discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Potter?
Yes.
Resolution 2025-30 is adopted. All right, moving on. Township residents have recently received a letter from Archer Energy establishing the new negotiated electricity rate, which starts this month, goes through May of 2028. The current rate that we have is 0.06349 per kilowatt hour. It's going to increase to 0.09199. So almost a 50% increase. Letter asks residents to notify Archer by May 7th, should they not wish to participate in the township's aggregation program. In reality, our residents can opt out at any time during the contract period. So they won out, they didn't do it last week and still do it.
I did talk to Joe Garrett about the increase in rate. He basically said that AES has got to increase their rates in June. So that's, I guess that's the best they could get.
Yes, I'm afraid that we're all going to pay a lot more product, no matter what kind of contract. All right, a monthly reminder that the township's web content and mobile applications will need to be compliant with new Department of Justice disability accessibility requirements by April 2027. And I've given you in the past a link to a fact sheet concerning these new rules available on the Civil Rights Division website.
Do we have any update from the cemetery people that are doing the web?
No, they're working on ours, but they have not given what they could do for us yet,
Okay.
if they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the easiest way to do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Okay. So,
And we do get those emails. Have you noticed that? We get weekly from a company that is doing,
okay, it's the same one that Mark, same company that,
it's not, I don't know. We get them in our email every week. It's updating based on, specifically for that. So there's definitely gonna be options going forward.
Okay, moving on. I see Mr. Jacoby in the audience. So I guess I'll start with a thank you to him, to his wife Danny, and to Mr. Bader, who just recently left, all of their hard work on the fire EMS levy that did pass last week. And I also want to thank the township and Germantown residents who helped approve that levy. It was critical, we felt, for the EMS and fire department to have that additional revenue since they were not getting it any longer from Germantown Rescue Squad Inc. and had used up all of their, pretty much their fund balances. So thank you, Mr. Jacoby. Please pass the word on to your wife. And thank you, residents. And while we're talking levies, the next levy that will come up with the township is the roads levy. And back on May 1st, Mr. Potter and I met with Germantown Mayor Terry Johnson, City Manager Judy Gilliland.
Park levy.
What did I say? Road, I'm sorry, Parks. Duh. Didn't even hear myself. Parks levy. Anyway, we met with the two of them as well as Deputy Finance Director Randy Stiver to discuss the Parks levy that expires next year. And by state statute, we're allowed to place the levy on the ballot up to 3 times, starting this November, next May, and then in November of 2026. Any or all of those times. The group that met after discussing several options recommended that you trustees place a parks levy on the November 2025 ballot as a renewal with a 1 mil increase. The purpose of the 1 mil increase is to be able to fund numerous improvements to the parks. And if you decide to ask the voters to increase the levy, millage, the Parks Board, working with the city, will develop a list of capital projects to be completed using the additional funds. And those projects might include paving the rest of the parking lots at Kircher and Weber Parks, replacing the Kircher Park restrooms, concession stand, further improvements at the MMI Park, additional tennis courts, pickleball courts, a dog park, all sorts of items. So if you're inclined to move forward in that regard, I've given you the first step resolution, which is to ask the county auditor to certify the amount that would be created by the renewal with the 1 mil additional.
I think you should explain why you called that meeting for the city in with.
The state is considering and will most likely implement a change in levies that will no longer allow local jurisdictions to put replacement levies on the ballot. There will only be then the option of a renewal or a renewal with additional millage or a new levy, such as we just did with the fire EMS. The feeling of the legislature is that replacement levies tend to be confusing and misleading to the voters. So that is something that we could do with the parks levy, but most likely that change is going to happen prior to the November election. And when I called the Board of Elections up in Dayton and asked whether the new rules would preclude a replacement levy, they didn't have any idea whether it would or wouldn't. So yes, I called the meeting thinking, do we want to try to push through a replacement levy, whether we want to do a renewal? But as we talked about all the things the parks really need and have needed for many, many years, the group that met decided that this would be their recommended approach.
So is this going to be one issue on the ballot then? It's not
Yes,
going to be two, so.
would be one.
So you can't say, well, I want it renewed, but I don't want to pay the extra millage. It's
It
all,
would not be that option. You're either in favor of the levy as it would be presented, renewal with a 1 mil additional, or you would vote against the entire amount. Now, does that mean that we couldn't go back next May or next November and run it again or run something different? We absolutely could.
go ahead, Mark.
Mark Keener,
Not sure whether you can be heard on the,
just a quick question, the renewal plus the 1 mil additional. So typically a renewal is just renewing for the amount of time, but at the current effective millage rate. So will the current effective millage rate stay in effect.
Yes,
So it's going to be 0.7 mil plus a new 1.
correct. Actually, it's a half mil levy. So it'd be like, I think it's around 35.3536
Okay.
plus then the one.
Thank you for that clarification, sir.
I'm sorry?
I said, thank you for the clarification.
I think before we should place it or to go further, it says the city, if we decide to do this increase, then when they put it on the ballot, then the city will develop a list of capital projects. I think that needs to be done before we place it on the ballot. The Parks Board and the city come up with the plan of what they want specifically.
I think what they're waiting to do is to hear what you decide tonight. If we start step one, we have to then, before, at least by the July meeting, place it on the ballot. That gives them a couple months to formalize their thinking about what kind of projects.
And if it passes in November, do they collect a year early?
No, as I've given it to you, it would not take effect until 2026.
No matter what.
To be collected in 2027. So this current 5-year cycle would go ahead and finish out at the end of next year.
I think that with the passage of the fire EMS at 4 mills, it's going to be difficult to pass another additional millage. And I'm not sure, their improvements they've listed here as far as additional pickleball courts and the MMI park and the dog park. I'm not sure the public is going to say, yeah, we need those, because I don't think we need any of them, to tell the truth. And to pay, to ask the residents for another mill, just on top of the 4 mills they just passed. I don't think I can support it. I can support a renewal, but I don't think I can support the additional.
No, I don't like them lumped together either. If they want to ask for a renewal and then a replacement or a renewal and a new levy.
Can they
as
be
two separate issues?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be separate. I think that would make more sense, but putting all your eggs in one basket is not gonna end well, I don't think. So I would prefer it be two separate levies. The renewal of the original, and then if they want a 1 mil additional, run that as a separate levy.
That is possible.
And that can be done easily. In fact, we can do that tonight using 2 resolutions.
Yeah.
A renewal resolution and then an additional levy.
Does that make more, that makes more sense to me.
Makes more sense to me too, because they know exactly what they did.
You're forcing people to, I feel like you're gonna force people when it's gonna not go well.
Yeah, most people will probably be okay with the renewal, hopefully. You don't even know that. I mean, the cemetery didn't pass by a whole lot. But to lump those together, I'm pretty sure you can be assured that it's not going to pass. Then you don't even have the renewal money coming in.
Right.
I think the second thing that'll happen is, assuming you all move forward with some way, an additional amount, that there'll be a levy committee established similar to there was this past election for the higher EMS. And perhaps that some of the same people may be involved.
Name for the record.
I have a question, Deb Cross. I also want to ask, aren't we still paying for the paving? We haven't paid back everything, correct?
Correct.
So,
That's correct. There is no money. I mean, there is, only thing current levy provides is just maintenance of what we already have. So what they're thinking is to the community, if the community wants nicer parks, nicer concession stands, more blacktop, then they're going to have to pass an additional levy. If they don't want it, then they won't pass. It's just leaving it up to the committee, because the only thing the half mil does now is just does maintenance on the current parks we already have with very little improvement. Like you said.
all the maintenance,
I'm sorry,
not even all the maintenance. I mean, the back.
not even all the maintenance. That's correct. And the concession stands and the bathrooms, they all just keep deteriorating. So it's just, it'll be up to the community if they want to have nicer parks and nicer bathrooms and nicer stuff. We are a recreational town.
As a resident who can afford the levy, but I think it's better to let the rest of the community decide whether they want the extra. or-
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. It's let them decide if they want it or not.
And a 1 mil additional for $100,000 value is $35. I think the average house, what did we decide, Mr. Jacoby, is 250 or so in the community?
Right.
So we're somewhere around $85 a year for a 1 mil additional on an average house.
And that would generate how much per year?
Should generate about 275, 1 mil per year. So 1,000,004 over 5 years, something like that.
Well, $1 million for 4 or 5 years would do all the blacktop and
Well, well, the cemetery ran a 1 mil. Right, and we got 140,000 out of that.
I don't remember
I thought it
what the
was that 1 mil
valuations.
I thought,
I think it was 1 mil.
Didn't we say the 4 mil was 1,000,001
Okay.
at the new
Yeah,
valuation?
oh, maybe that way.
That was the calculated forecast projection.
So we don't have to do anything tonight. You could wait till June and do the first of the 2 resolutions. But if you want to put something on the ballot in November of any type, you have to start at least by June.
Okay, can we send it back to them and let them know that we would prefer just 2 separate?
You can change it right now if you want.
Why? We can, is that fine? I mean, what do you think?
I think what they're thinking was if it did not pass this year, then they would try something next year. They have another all of 26 to try something different.
And this is a 5-year.
It would be a 5-year.
5 years starting in 27.
So we can use the same language and sort of halfway down through the paragraph,
Yeah,
it talks about a $500,000 renewal with an additional 1 mil. Just eliminate the appropriate words on each of the 2 resolutions.
okay. So that's 31.
It'll be 31.
All right, I'll introduce resolution 2025-31, a resolution that the Montgomery County Auditor's Office certified the German Township, the total current tax valuation of the German Township incorporated and unincorporated areas, and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by a recreational levy, a 0.5 mil renewal with the first half collection in 27 to provide funding for the parks and recreational purposes as authorized in the ORC section 570519 to be voted on November 4th, 2025.
Any discussion? So this resolution deals with the $500,000 renewal.
Yes.
Hearing no discussion, I'll call the roll. Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Potter?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 31 is adopted.
Okay, so now I'll introduce resolution 2025-32, a resolution requesting the Montgomery County Auditor's Office certify to German Township the total current tax valuations of German Township incorporated and unincorporated areas and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by a recreational levy, additional 1 mil for a 5-year period beginning with the tax year, the first half collection in 27, to provide funding for parks and recreational purposes as authorized in the ORC section 570519H. Be voted on November 4th, 2025.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion of this one? Hearing none. Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
Dr. Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Potter?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So resolution 2025-32 is also adopted. All right, just one last item, and that is as a member of the Germantown Lions Club, I want to invite the entire community to the Lions sponsored Memorial Day program at Veterans Park. It starts at 10 o'clock on Memorial Day, and it is followed by a pilgrimage to Germantown Union Cemetery, where there would be a second shorter program out there. With that, I'm done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Houston. Chief Birch.
All right. Last month, our officers drove 8,343 miles. We were dispatched on 100 calls. We closed 95 of those and we had 24 follow-ups. Made one arrest, which was a felony arrest. We did 506 business checks, 183 vacant house checks, and 1,279 occupied house checks. Basically what that means is as the officer drives, he writes down, I checked out the Jacoby's house, made sure everything looked okay. That's what the occupied house checks. We had 4 crashes, 26 traffic stops, and wrote 15 citations. On equipment issues and information, need the trustees to declare the 2016 Jeep Renegade as excess. And then we would like to sell on shelf deals.
I'll introduce resolution 2025-32. Is that correct?
Yes, 33.
33, a resolution to declare the 2016 Jeep Renegade as excess to be sold on Gov Deals.
Any discussion? Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Potter? Yes. Thank you. Resolution 2025-33 is adopted.
German Township Police Department held our annual shred day and prescription pill take back on Saturday, 5/3, between 9 and 11 a.m. The event was another success. The shred company Earth said that we shredded 6,250 pounds, which is 2.84 tons of paper. So I think that went very well. We took in a few pounds of drugs.
I haven't actually, I forgot to weigh it, so I can tell you.
What we typically do with those, we take those to a DEA take back and then they destroy them for drugs. I wanted to congratulate Officer Bateman on a job well done with his quick apprehension of one suspect and identification of 2 other suspects involved in the theft of 2 trailers and 2 lawnmowers stolen from German Township late last month. Charges are pending. All the stolen items were returned to the rightful owners within a few days of the theft. So he did a very good job. And I also wanted to talk about the National Police Week. I'd like to thank all of the current and past German Township officers. Their work timelessly to keep our community safe. Also like to recognize all the officers who have given their lives protecting their communities and people that they don't even know of our great country. Something that weighs on my mind a lot when I'm thinking about the officers out there doing what they do. And I appreciate our guys. We have great officers here. And I just want to publicly thank them for doing what they do. They don't have to do it. And I love each and every one. They're great guys. So that's all I got.
One more thing, we need to talk about the accreditation.
Okay.
So
basically, our accreditation with CALEA has become troublesome. We've seen over the last few years that they are less likely to help us improve our policies and procedures and more towards like what the last officer or last auditor told Shauna. If you fail, you fail, right?
Said, I want you to give it your best shot, fail, you fail.
So that's not the CALEA that we joined in 1999. CALEA has become kind of an outdated concept in these times that we're in right now. And I recently had a phone conference with the CALEA representative for our area, and it didn't go well. It had gotten to the point to where he was wanting me and Shauna to travel out of state to meet with them because there were items that they said that we had issues with that we were not aware of. They weren't on our reports. We weren't aware of them. So I made a phone call to Jay, explained what was going on, and we are stepping away from Kalia. And there's a reason that we want to do this. We want to move forward in our police department. And I think we've become stagnant over the past few years with our policies and procedures. So Lexipol, it's a company that provides public safety agencies with tools to create and manage policies, trainings, and resources to help us move forward like I'm talking about. Second thing is we're a member of the Ohio Collaborative. We're currently certified by the Ohio Collaborative, but 2 years ago, the Ohio Collaborative started an accreditation program, which Dayton Police Department was the first police department to become accredited by the Ohio Collaborative. And that is my goal. It's free. We don't have to pay $6,000 a year to be accredited by an agency that's becoming outdated. It's free. It provides the same level of auditing processes, and it would continue to keep us accountable to the state who we're accountable to. If we have Lexipol, which is going to be the same amount of money we were spending on Kalia, this is something that it's a huge, huge improvement in what we currently have. It makes you train. It makes an officer, when they come in every day, sit down and do a 5-minute review of some specific policy or some specific procedure, instead of in our monthly meetings where we all sit down and go over the reviews, which we'll still do. But we will also be doing daily trainings per this Lexipol program. They also update your policies for you when a law changes, which is something that we've had to manage ourselves and sometimes get missed. So I think with this combination of Lexipol and the Ohio collaboration and going towards the accreditation through the Ohio collaboration, I think it helps us move future in a better manner.
Yeah. I've had conversations with Chief Bruner at Jackson Township, probably going back a year, because this is who they use. This came to a head real quick, which is why I didn't come to a meeting first. We had to have an answer by Friday, and it wasn't possible by the time he knew for us to even have a special meeting at that point in time. So I think moving forward, again, this is a conversation I've had with Chief Bruner, Chief Birch, as well as Sergeant Spurlock from Jackson as well. They use this, they like it. And I think we're similar in our department. So I think that it's going to be a good thing for us going forward and hopefully save us a little bit of money in the long run and the headaches that Kalia was giving all of you guys.
So this is going to take some time and some effort. We already have policies and procedures in place, and we've done well over the years with our audits. But to implement these new Lexipol and to become accredited through the Ohio collaboration, not just certified, accredited, it's going to take some effort, and I think it's going to be worthwhile. Though I think it helps our department move forward.
Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Holbrook.
A few things on my agenda tonight. First thing I wanted to talk to the board about was I reached out to Oakley Blacktop Incorporated. They're a blacktop company out of Dayton. To do some repairs on Siegel Road and Butter Street. If you remember, we used the COVID money to pave Siegel Road. And as we all know, we do not have the power to limit truck traffic on any of our roads. So that has caused some issues on Siegel. We've had a handful of failures on Siegel that are starting to rear up from insufficient support under the asphalt. So I reached out to Oakley to get a price on having them excavate, basically mill down 10 inches and replace it with all blacktop, basically rebuilding the base and the surface of those spots on Siegel and a couple spots on Butter Street, northwest of Lower. So I did contact them. They gave me a price of $13 a square foot. And I would like to have the board's permission to allocate 35,000, no more than 35,000 to have some repairs done on Siegel Butter Street by Oakwood Blacktop Incorporated.
34.
I would like to introduce resolution 2025-34, a resolution to contract with Oakley Blacktop for no more than $35,000 for
Deep repairs
deep
on
repairs of
Siegel
Siegel
Butter Street.
and Butter.
Second.
I don't understand, we could spend all day, every day up there writing lane violation citations to trucks. That road's not wide enough. So
We're planning on, actually Doug Pohl with Jackson Township and I are planning on trying to schedule a meeting with the new county engineer to discuss issues. He's got his own issues that he's dealing with up there. One of our main issues is the inability to manage our traffic on our own roads. Since we are home rule township, or we're not a home rule, not a home rule township, we do not have that authority. So that was one of the things we're going to try to get him on board with. I have talked to other people in the county engineer's office, and they are adamant that it is a public road. It should be open to all traffic. But they don't understand our limited resources and that road was never built to a standard to accept.
you couldn't even widen. There's not enough space to even widen it.
You could, but how would you, who's going to pay for it?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we're going to end up looking at. But in the meantime, I'm trying to catch these spots before they become full-on blowouts, and then we just, have all kinds of patching all over the road. It just rides horribly. So, but that's what this is hopefully going to try to nip in the bottom. So,
You have a question?
I do. Mark Keener again. When you did Siegel, didn't you do like extra pavement at the bottom? Because I remember I was blown away because you described how trucks coming down and braking. It's like
we used a different mix on the hill to combat shoving, which was when people braking going down the hill causes the asphalt to ball up at the end. But that mix is twice as much money per ton. And so, it was cost prohibitive to use it on the entire roadway. It's
Right.
basically a highway mix design. It's meant to carry that excessive traffic. But these problems I'm talking about are basically, there's nothing underneath the thin layer of blacktop that's there now.
Okay.
So when the trucks go over it, traffic, there's just nothing there. So like I said, they're going to mill out a good 10 inches. And if they don't find anything substantial, then they have some money built in that we can actually excavate deeper, replace it with some stone, put 10 inches of asphalt back in there. So
Okay.
there is some money set aside in that quote to do any additional. We still feel, once we do the inspection, once they get through it, find out what's underneath there. So, but yes, Mark, that there was specific, and the hill looks fine. It's just a handful of spots on both lanes headed back towards 75.
I'm noticing in Germantown, the same kind of problems exist on West Market Street. Where they went down to the base, I thought, when they did that, and it's sinking.
Yeah.
I'm sure the heavy truck traffic. Any more discussion of the resolution? Okay, Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Potter?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2025-34 is adopted.
Second item is Scott and I will try to begin mowing the township right of ways either later this week or the first part of next week, weather dependent. Scott and I also excavated the foundation removed the old sign and excavated the foundation for the new sign. We're hoping to have the concrete finished poured tomorrow morning. That way it gives that foundation time to set up before the new sign arrives in 5 weeks.
You beat me to it. It's in production now. They slated 6 to 8 weeks for production. So it's been in production for a few weeks now. Oh,
Yep.
I was gonna thank the road department for taking down the old sign and getting that ready.
Like I said, we wanted to give the concrete time to set up, and the company that we purchased the sign through set us a full scale layout,
Oh, perfect.
the J bolts and all that. So we set that all up. The only other things under other, Scott and I attended the annual township county engineers meeting with Mr. Lou and had a good lunch. County basically just talked about some of the project they had done this past year, where they were wanting to go next year. Not a lot of new information. Didn't really talk too much about Astoria Road or anything of great importance, but it's a good meeting. The other thing is we're still mowing the cemeteries, obviously. And the third item is some time ago, I applied for a blanket sign replacement grant through the Ohio Department of Transportation. And they have now opened that up to people that have been awarded that grant in the past, which before it was strictly only people that hadn't got the grant. So I reapplied. The total on that was listed, but it was 31,000 some odd dollars to replace all the signs in our inventory on our township roads. They did receive it. They had some updates to some of the contractors' materials that you can purchase, so I have to fill out a little bit more on that. But I'm hopeful that we get that grant because some of our signs are, especially the ones that face south, are getting pretty baked, pretty good. So once again, this would be, we have a year, I think, once we receive the signs to get them corrected. A nice fall job, every day, just load up the signs and go out and just type away at hundreds of signs that we have. And so it went really quickly the last time we did it, so I had no doubt that easily be done within a year. So if we do get that grant, I'll be sure to bring it up at the next meeting. But that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Zoning, Ms. Close.
4 permits in April, 2 were for fences on Jamaica Road, pole barn on Mudlick, and a garage on Oxford. We have BZA case number 2025-04 CU. A lot split on 725 will be held here tomorrow, the public hearing at 7 p.m. The zoning commission will have their next regular meeting on June 3rd, correct? At 7 p.m. There's a few large projects in zoning that were coming down the pike that have been kind of pulled back. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, not too much fun. I'm starting to get more permits. It's been a busy couple weeks with permits, but other than that, not too major.
All right.
I was gonna thank them, but he kind of stole my thunder on that one. But thank you guys for doing all this.
Quite welcome.
All right, thank you. Trustee reports, Mr. Potter.
Went to a park meeting. They did not have a quorum for the park. But what was discussed there was Ben was there with the city. The AED box was mounted and on the concession stand and will be placed in it when they turn the water on. They talked about the grand marshals for the 4th of July parade. MMI, I met with a brick mason to give us a price on the brick columns and the wall. Plaques and the eagles will be on. And the MMI sign will be put on the boulder here in the next couple of weeks before Memorial Day. Little Twin, we'll read you an email. Ashley Elrod from the OPWC informed us the German Township Little Twin Road Stabilization Project would have to undergo a change in scope to be funded by the OPWC HQ. The issue, according to her, is that the OPWC director determined that the work on the creek at the base of the road bed slope would be outside the authority of the legislation criteria established in the OPWC enabling legislation. Aside from the change in scope, she also informed us that there'd be no additional money available to the German Township above the district for approval amount of $53,591 for the project. So, Stacy Valance and Joe Dura came down last Thursday and met with me and Scott and Jeremy.
They're with the Montgomery County Engineer's Office.
Zip Joe Dura's.
Are they both with the engineer's office? Okay.
To figure out something. There is no way of using the OPWC funding that doesn't increase the cost to the township. With that being said, I recommend to the township that we withdraw our application of the OPWC funding. I did meet with Ron Wine on Friday to discuss options. And for the $53,500 that the township has already approved for the project, he thinks, he's pretty sure that we can get the water pushed away from the road with that. And that will stop any more eroding on the bank. Now, something that I did not realize, well, Joe Dura was here, they was going to Astoria Road. When Astoria slipped, it did not take any of the blacktop away. It slipped right up to the edge of the blacktop, so they had to close the road. So that is not eligible for any grant funding whatsoever. If it doesn't take the blacktop, emergency funding. They will have no emergency funding. That'll all have to come out of pocket. So with that being said, we will have the same situation on Little Twin if the bank slides and it doesn't take any blacktop. The road could have to be closed, but there'll be no emergency funding because if I understood it from Joe,
Blacktop doesn't go.
blacktop doesn't go. It's not emergency, even if you have to close the road.
The reason they closed Astoria was because the guardrail, which is a part of the infrastructure, keeps people safe, basically dangling, the posts that support the guardrail no longer had anything that supported the guardrail. So even though the road is still there and you could drive on it, it's considered unsafe. It's the guardrail, which is part of the structure. So that was their reasoning for closing it, even though you walk it and you're like, well, I could drive. Yes, yeah, you could, but anybody hits the guardrail, they're gonna.
So,
Yeah, so unless the blacktop goes, it's not an emergency.
not an emergency. So we would be on the hook for that if the bank was to slide without taking any blacktop. So with the funding, the 53,000, we could get the water pushed away from the bank to stop any further erosion. And then with it being dry down there in the future, maybe we could do some work on it ourselves. We could move the concrete around. We could pour some concrete in there to stabilize the slabs of concrete that's over the bank. You could have more of an option of doing something. But if you don't get the water away from the bank, sooner or later, something's going to slide.
So what's he gonna do for the $53,000?
He'll do the same thing that he did at Kircher Park, move the creek over. He said he'd be glad to come down and with a slide and show you some other projects that he had done. But he'd be moving the creek. There'd be no water at the base of the road base when he got done.
Be basically doing the same thing they did for parks, using the
Yeah.
Palmer method of lining it with trees and
Right.
brush and, you know, all that, where down at Astoria, now all that trees and brush is starting to get filtered in with sediment. It's becoming land over time. That's kind of the same thing he's gonna do. My understanding,
That's
at
correct.
the base of,
But that's half the price of what he quoted us before, right?
But-
Because the grant was gonna be 50%.
Right, so his price before was like 70,000 of that, of our grant
Okay,
was his doing his work.
okay.
So I think that's what it was 70,000. So if we're interested in doing something, he'd like to come down and take another look at it and make a plan and come to the board with a plan.
Yeah.
Well, we'd already basically approved 50,000 to get the whole thing done, and part of that whole thing done would be moving the creek over and more stabilizing the road. Now, we're not going to be able to put no guardrail or nothing up, but we would be able to keep any more further damage. And after talking to Joe, or if the bank does slide and it doesn't take the road, we got no help.
He can come make a presentation. We can go from there, I guess. But yeah, I'd like to see what he has planned for at this time.
Okay. We approved submitting that grant application by resolution back in September of last year. So if we are going to withdraw the application, I recommend that we do another resolution.
Do we need to do anything? You just decline the funding.
Well,
Well, we have to decline the funding so that they could give the money to the next
Okay.
person.
I got you.
but you recommended that we withdraw the application.
Absolutely.
right?
So that the money can be given to the next.
they PWC takes that money back and redistributes it to projects that didn't get funded.
So to withdraw it, I think we need a resolution. Down the road, if you don't withdraw it and you get awarded the money and you turn it down, we would do that by resolution at that time.
Okay.
But I think he would prefer doing it now.
Yes, so that they can redisperse the money to the next project.
So I would recommend that we go ahead and do resolution 35 to withdraw. And you can refer back to resolution. Pass that down to him. I circled the resolution that we used back in September.
Okay, I'd like to introduce resolution 2025-35, a resolution to withdraw resolution 2024-62, authorizing Ron Wine to prepare and submit an application to the Ohio Public Works State Capital Improvement Program and the Local Transportation Improvement Program, and to execute the fund, and to undo that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Rescind.
Tongue twist.
Second.
I'll take that back.
Oh, yeah.
That's our file copy of all of our resolutions from last year. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Potter?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2025-35 is adopted.
All right, one last thing, late last summer, I noticed that, Preble County was spraying their, noxious weeds, the county was. So I talked to Jeremy and did some investigation, and there's actually a law, which I give you the pamphlets, of spraying noxious weeds. So, get an earlier start on it this year. So late last summer, I talked to Jeremy about spraying the noxious weeds along with the township and roads on our right of way. This year, I'm getting an earlier start for the problem. By law, a noxious weed has to be controlled. Read the OSU extension bulletin. I made initial contact with the county at the annual engineers luncheon, and I'll be following up on that. I made a formal complaint with the Metro Parks, which they have 5 days to get back with me on response and a plan. Shane Sheldon, which is a CPRP regional manager of the conservation for the Five River Metro Park, called me. He told me that he is a new regional manager for the area and where he came from, the Johnson Grass program, and he would be applying that program in this area. I went up to Jackson Township meeting this evening and talked to them about the noxious weed laws to try to get, and I'm going to go to talk to Jefferson. I talked to Jefferson Township. I want to talk to Perry and trying to get some support and pressure on the county and the state to spray their weeds with Johnson grass problem. So
Yep.
It's law and
Perfect.
needs to be done.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you for doing that. What was Jackson Township's response?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
absolutely for it. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I just don't think people realize it.
Right.
And how much help there is if you read that. It's pretty detailed on what they need to do and even when to do it and how to fence rows and public lands and all that stuff. And at Shane Sheldon, he was very on it, or at least he acted like he was.
Yeah.
So I told him as far as I know, I've never seen any Metro Park Johnson grass killed.
Right.
Have you ever seen any?
No.
No. So he said, he said that wherever he come from, he had that program and applied, and he will applying it down here.
It hides their deer real good, so I'm sure they like it along the roadways.
So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Dr. Cross.
Okay, pretty short. I attended the Germantown Council meeting on May 5th, 2025. The highlights, Montgomery County Commissioner Mary McDonald attended the meeting to introduce by Scott Weidel to the east of the former Days Garage. Council finally voted to $1,500 for the Cover Bridge project. So that just keeps kind of bigger. Councilmember Rick Reed stated that the pool board trustees released some pool holdback funds, which they came in tonight. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. I've got a few things tonight. I'll start with the cemetery. This past year, we received a grant for $2,500 that we had requested this grant for, sorry, Mark, this isn't on yours because my cemetery meeting runs, all my cemetery stuff I can't add to this because.
Understand.
Yeah.
I'm going to take notes.
We had requested $2,500 for foundation repairs of headstones that had just through time had become unsteady. So we had contracted with Richards Monuments as well as Eric's Cemetery Services. And we were able to complete 30 headstone repairs for just a little over $6,000. We had budgeted originally $6,500 for 12 stones. We were able to do 30 with the same amount of, actually a little less the money. So if you've been to the cemetery, you can see some of the stones have been fixed. Some of the big ones, the larger stones, he's had Richards come in and do because they have the equipment necessary. And several of the stones they had to move to repair, had to come into 3 pieces to be light enough for the machinery to pick it up because there's some big stones. The problem we were having on some of these hills is as they began to lean, it became a safety hazard. So we took care, Keith went through and identified the worst ones, and we were able to take care of 30 headstones for this season. They're in full swing on getting prepped for Memorial Day, but they've also had several scheduled burials here in the next couple weeks. So they're way ahead of where we were at this time last year. So Keith is trying to manage, Keith and crew are trying to manage the burials along with the rain, along with the Memorial Day planning here. Burkhart's came tonight with their survey results. We've requested Burkhart to give us what we can do with the wall and the sidewalk out front. Steve Fox from Burkhart came tonight and gave us a presentation. He gave us a couple different options. Basically, it's going to be a lot cheaper than we had originally anticipated, to the point where I'm not sure we're going to need to request additional township funding, which is great. Basically, we can remove the sidewalk, remove the wall, and grade it out, because the wall does not affect the house at all, is what they've come up with. The catch to that is we have to get the city to not make us put the sidewalk back in. So we're going to try and ask them to not make us put the sidewalk back in to save the cost. The sidewalk to nowhere.
That's what I was gonna say, it doesn't go anywhere.
Right. And we even discussed the possibility tonight of if we could submit a resolution, we could go through the county prosecutor, we could get a legal document that says if they ever complete the sidewalk, we will then take care of the rest of it. So I believe that's the option. Burkhart's is going to go back and make some changes to what they drew up, but I think the consensus tonight of the board is to go forward with grading this, and then hoping the city understands that this sidewalk goes literally nowhere. It eliminates the wall, and it'll take care
So
of.
there'll be no wall, there'll be no concrete, no sidewalk.
No sidewalk. There will be a partial sidewalk from the house to the driveway, because they have kids that get on the bus.
I will say
So we're
what
just,
about the step.
yeah, we're gonna come from the steps west with a sidewalk from the house, so they can access that. And that's it. Now, if they make us put the sidewalk in, that adds expense, because then the wall has to go back to, we can't slope it enough. So we'll have to put a retaining wall back in, which adds, significant costs. So
Is there a sidewalk in front of the Weidel property next to
No,
the cemetery?
there is not.
So it's only on cemetery property?
But it is
Sidewalk.
partially onto his, but not the whole way, the whole length, obviously. So that's where we're at. We're gonna hope the city understands, and I don't quite understand, as the cemetery is in the township. However, based on 725 and the roadway, it's maintained by German, so therefore there's the other thing we were able to do with this plan is the sidewalk that we do put back in for the house specifically. He's checking, but he believes we can keep it off the right of way completely. So it'll be completely on our property, and then it's just ours to maintain, and there won't be any issue there going forward. So that was good news. It's going to save us quite a bit of money, hopefully going forward. And it's something we'd like to get done, as it looks terrible and it's definitely falling apart, and is a safety hazard. So most likely for Memorial Day, we will route people down the road again like we did last year, keep them off the sidewalk just as a safety precaution. Pat, our new office worker, Pat Tanruther, continues to do an excellent job. They said she's picking up everything and just making it run smoothly down there, which is what we needed. And as Bob's taken a step back and just doing the fiscal officer job, as well as data inputting currently for the updated website and the software we're having created. We passed a resolution tonight to officially join the Ohio 250 America Celebration. Dave Short from the Veterans Museum was willing to partner with us, so that's the route we went for that. So we'll see where that goes going forward. All the foundations that were ordered before April 15th have been poured for this year. We're able to keep up a little better. He's having Eric's cemetery services do all their concrete at the moment, which saves our guys to do the mowing and upkeep. All right, that's the cemetery. We already talked about Clea. We already talked about that. The last thing I would just bring up tonight is there was an article in the Germantown Press 2 weeks ago on the JED that was incredibly inaccurate and slightly deceptive. And I'm not exactly sure. I should ask while the city representatives were here earlier, how that ended up in the press so wrong. But it basically said that there was a 21% income tax that was reduced, that Germantown requested be reduced to 6% or so, but that it went to 15, which that's not the holdback money that they keep for money in the JED was held back, but it made it anyway. It was incredibly inaccurate, and I don't know if they printed a retraction or not because they did.
They did this past week, but the retractions, this small.
That's probably why I missed it.
Made out, that employees are paying 15%.
Right.
of their checks when it's.
Right. It's 1.25.
When I saw the original article that morning, Thursday morning, immediately reached out to Mr. Stiver,
Yeah.
the president of the JED board. I said, you need to deal with this. So he called Skip Weaver at the press. His word to me, Randy's word to me was, that's what happens when a sports writer tries to write news.
Well, I think what's frustrating is the only people that were at the JED meeting were the people that would know what went on. So somebody from the city sent that story into them that they had to have.
I think he was interviewed by Skip.
But they would have had.
But why?
But why? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And the article made no sense. So I think it was unfortunate. And then it made the headline on the headline on the newspaper when a year ago when we give Fred Lander an award, he's buried 6 pages deep. I'm just found that to be quite interesting, but just disappointed that that's the way.
How many acres is it dead?
11,000.
Yeah. Right. So again, like, I just don't understand how that they can send that in. To whatever. Do you have an update on the JED that you'd like to give tonight? While you're here, sorry,
No, just a quick update. So our next JED board meeting is going to be right here on the Wednesday after the township trustee meeting Monday. So I believe
in
that's-
June. So that would be Wednesday,
Wednesday.
June 11th.
June 11th, okay. And so, aside from just the normal updates, I have been told we're gonna have 2 people making presentations, 2 teachers, and I believe Mr. Sepchi probably help me with the names. One is a music teacher.
Mr. Jacobs.
Okay, he's doing a keyboard program, and they've had pianos donated for him to teach keyboard. But they're like home pianos and they're moving the pianos around. And, it's a home piano and upright that's designed to stay in the corner of grandma's house, not to be moved all over the school. So, and they've had several donated to, it's my understanding. So he's wanting the JED board to donate money towards purchasing portable electronic keyboards. Nice thing. And then the special ed teacher.
Michelle Hodson.
She is going to come and request funding for a greenhouse project. And her idea is to have kids that are involved in FFA, used to be a pilot, so FFA. The FFA kids to help her special ed kids learn farming and gardening and to give the special ed kids kind of the whole planting, seeing it grow, harvest, that type of experience. So she wants to build some sort of greenhouse. So she can ask. So this 20% income tax that we're withholding, actually it got knocked down to 15 to go into a special project and maintenance fund. That also includes paying for expenses such as the insurance, the liability insurance is $800 a year. So that comes out of that pot of money. And then special request that comes in, that's where this money comes from. It's this money that's being withheld. So we're essentially withholding 15% of the approximately, I'm going to throw out for $150,000 that comes in. So we're going to hold back $22,500 this year towards the special projects and expenses. So that, in that fund right now, have to hold to this. There's somewhere around 40 or 50,000 fund, if I remember right, to be used towards these projects. So, if anybody knows people doing things out at the school, and send them to come to the JED board and give some of that money back to a good cause.
Well, I'll just give a shout out to Michelle Hodson and what she's done. And she does a fantastic job with her kids, and she's out in the community. And well deserving.
Well,
So
I've heard,
that's my little plug.
yeah, I've heard from people that she is very generous, not just her own special educators, but kids in general. Supplies of, athletic shoes if they're on the basketball team or, track team, whatever. She spends her own money for that. So hopefully we can give money back.
I know that's true for a fact, so.
Yes, Chief.
I'm on the safety committee, for Valley School. And someone was going to approach the committee about stop the bleed kids.
Stop the what?
Stop the bleed kids. They're safety kids that, and horrible situation, if somebody shot. But they're kids that you can.
Okay, so pressure bandages, clotting agents, things like
Stuff
that.
like that. Have you been approached by anybody?
We have not.
Okay. That is a project that I've heard is going to be brought to you guys, to help with the purchase of those stuff. So,
Yeah, as of now, the only two people that I'm aware of that are coming to the June meeting are the two that I mentioned.
okay,
So if you want to get with whoever you're talking to about this.
Yeah.
So our criteria is basically has to do something to like improve the environment out there at the JED. Obviously a greenhouse is going to improve the environment, but we've also given money for the weight room project that's out there. So that's equipment that's being used. So I think we could certainly make an argument. I mean, God forbid there's a shooting out there and some kid or teacher beats to death because, oh, we couldn't get the JED board donating $1,000 towards for state kids. So I think that would be worthy.
okay. Yeah, I'll get with him.
Yeah, and probably the best one to email would be Randy Stiver. And then also CC me on that. And Mr. Heaston has both of our.
Great. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Keener.
My pleasure. I was going to mention, because I knew you'd probably have a cemetery report, that the sidewalk in front of the cemetery is covered with weeds and looks really bad.
Yeah.
They're not going to be using it for Memorial Day. I just want to.
No, last year we directed the foot traffic around it. We're going to do the same this year. As just a safety precaution with how bad of condition the sidewalk as well as the retaining wall are in. So the last thing I have tonight is I would like to request an executive session for the purpose of employment under ORC 121.22G.
B1.
Can I,
One.
before you do that?
Sure.
Just make a mention.
Yeah.
Basically, I have, just due to some health concerns, I haven't decided whether I'm gonna go with reelection this upcoming.
Sorry, Dr. Cross, I'm not hearing you.
Oh. What did I say? Just because of some health issues, I'm not sure if I'm going to run for reelection at the November election. Basically, if anybody is interested in running, I want to get that out now so they have time to get their petitions and get them signed and all that stuff. So hopefully I'll make a decision in the next couple of weeks. But that's kind of where I'm sitting here, so.
Well, you've done a great job. We appreciate everything you've done.
Great to hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hope you can stay on, but if you can't, understand that as well. You've really done an exceptional job since you've been here.
I'm sure we have. I'm gonna say, just gonna stand up and say, you have set the bar up here for trustees, your research on, you know, the solar farms, the marijuana, the Faust Trust. I mean, I could go on if my memory is any good. I mean, you've just done an incredible job, your terms here, so. It's an honor for me to be up there at that table with you for many years, and it's an honor for me to call you my friend. Thanks for all that.
Now you're ready?
Yeah, yes. That's all right. Thank you. I'd like to ask for an executive session for ORC under 121.22G1 for the purpose of employment of a township official.
Like a second. You have to call the roll for this. So Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
Dr. Cross?
Yes.
And Mr. Potter?
Yes.
Okay, we're in executive session at 8:50.
I'd also request
A motion to go back into regular session.
I will make a motion to re-enter regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It is now 9:26. We're in regular session.
I would like to make a motion to post the zoning position. And I will work with Shauna to create a posting here in the next week to 10 days.
Is it going to be just zoning?
Zoning and trash, I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We actually vote on the regular session, I guess. Did I call for a vote? Let's backtrack. All in favor of
Aye.
back in regular session? Okay, any opposed? No. Okay. Now it's 9:27, back in regular session. And the zoning
I'd like to make
motion again.
a motion to post the zoning and trash billing position.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next motion.
That was done. All right. I would like to make a motion to switch with Dr. Cross from zoning and police. We're going to switch duties from today going forward.
Is there a second? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passed too.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn at 9:27.
I'll second that one.
That was quick. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned at 9:28. I've got.